Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the Gospels, looking at the 250 events in the life of Jesus. Today we're looking at Jesus healing the man who was born blind. Yesterday, Jesus healed a crippled woman, and they got mad at him because he did it on the Sabbath. And now he's going to heal a blind man. And this one's actually going to go through um, a couple uh, series here because he's going to get healed, and then the religious leaders are going to question him because he was healed. And so, but today we're just looking at Jesus healing him. And it says, and this is coming from John 9, verses 1 through 12. And it says, as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? And it was common belief back in this day that in Jewish culture that, if you had something that was wrong with you, then it was because of usually the sins of themselves or his own sins or the sins of the parents, right? Because he was born blind, well, the parents must have done something horrible to for this kid to be born blind. There must be some kind of sin in their life. That was kind of the belief. They didn't understand that we live in a fallen, sinful world, and so sometimes just bad things happen. And so they ask this question, and so Jesus answers them in verse 3. It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so that the power of God could be seen. So, Jesus is saying, yeah, this man was born blind so the power of God can be seen in him. That's the whole reason. So sometimes, when bad things happen to us, and it's hard at first, right? We have horrible things or painful things happen to us. Like at first, we don't understand why. Like, God, why did this happen to us? Why did you allow this to happen? Why am I having to go through this suffering? And then later on down the road, we see that God can be seen through your suffering. You can help others who've gone through the same thing. You can be a Christ-like example because of something that you've gone through, and to help others get through it. And so, in this case, Jesus is going to use him to heal, or to heal him to show his power. But I've seen so many times where horrible, horrible things, where great things have come out of horrible, horrible things. And so, we need to look at because we live in this fallen world, things like that are going to happen. It's unfortunate. Bad things are going to happen. We live in a fallen world, and where good behavior sometimes is not always rewarded, right? There's a lot of times where it's not, and bad behavior isn't punished, or good behavior is punished and bad behavior is rewarded. We see that every day too. And so those are the things that we look at, and because of that, innocent people just suffer. They're going to suffer sometimes because we live in a fallen world, because we live in a sinful world. Innocent people do suffer because of that. But the wonderful thing is if we have God in our life and Christ in our life, that we can maybe make meaning and use that for God's purpose to drive forward. Verse 4, he says, we must quickly carry out the task assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and then no one can work. And he's talking about their ministry, right? Right? Nighttime is coming. But when I am here in the world, I am the light of the world. And so then he in verse 6, right? He transitions. He says, then he spit on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. He told him, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. Now, there's many different ways Jesus has healed people. He has healed people by licking his finger or spitting on his finger and putting it in their ears. He's done it by just touching people's eyes. He's done it by just telling people they're healed. Now they're in touching them and they stand up. So that's the wonderful thing about Jesus. Like he's got a different method, or it seems like, with the different ways that he heals people. But he heals this man by making mud out of his own saliva, right? And then putting it on the blind man's eye. And so, when Jesus spits on the ground here, what he's doing is he's in making this mud to repair this man's eyes, he's actually working with original materials. And he's like, what do you mean? Well, if you go back to Genesis 2:7, right, it states that God formed Adam out of the dust of the ground. So he's using the dust of the ground to kind of repair this guy. It'd be like, using original materials to repair other things that we've made, right? And so this is what he's doing. He's using this as, an example. He was demonstrating a creator's awareness of the materials he first used to shape the human body. And so he's doing the same thing. He's going back to that and using that to heal him. And so in verse 8, it says, so the men went and washed, and he came back seeing. And in verse 8, his neighbors and others who knew him as a blind beggar asked each other, "Isn't this the man who used to sit and beg?" Some said he was, and others said, "No, it just looks like him," you know. And probably you probably see that today. It's like, no, it's just some guy that looks like him. But the beggar kept saying, "Yes, I am the same one." He was like, "Yeah, it's me," right? You know. Then they asked, "Who healed you? What happened?" I mean, I think that's a common question. We would probably, if we saw a guy that we knew had been blind from birth, or all of a sudden he's walking around and can see and he's not begging anymore. It's like, hey, how did that happen? We want to know. And so, in verse 11, he tells him, he says, "The man that they called Jesus made mud and spread it over my eyes and told me, 'Go to the pool and wash yourself.' So I went and washed, and now I can see." And so in verse 12, he says, where they say, "Where is he now?" They asked. "I don't know," he replied. And so we're going to catch it. We're going to start tomorrow on verse 13, where the religious leaders question the blind man. It's going to be a little bit lengthier of a lesson tomorrow, as today's is a little bit shorter. But we see this interaction, right? We see this interaction where Jesus goes and he heals this man. And it seems like this man was born blind just so Jesus could show his power and use him to show his who he is to the world. And so, no matter what we are going through, no matter what happens to us, no matter what maybe infirmity we have, or maybe a disability we have, or whatever we struggle with, right? It could be a number of different things. God can use that to help, not only help us, right, to help turn us around, use our faith to get through it, but to also show Jesus through that suffering, through that thing that we suffer with. I've seen a lot of people who've gone through some really horrific things, and because of their faith in Christ, they were able to come through it on the other side, and they were able to come through it on the other side and then help other people or show people God through their suffering. And so it may not make sense at the time we're going through it. You can go back to Job, read the whole book of Job, right? What happened to him? He never fully understood what happened to him and why it happened to him. I mean, we get the outsider's view, right? But he didn't get all that. He never got the explanation. He just knew all these things happened, and then God said, I can do what I want. And that seems unfair, but that's just the world that we live in. And so, as we look at this, we just got to understand that no matter what we're going through or what we have happening, we can Jesus can shine through what we have, right? Again, it doesn't mean we have to be cheerful, right? He didn't tell this man like, "Well, you should have been you should have been happy you've been blind from birth and that you're having to go through this." He didn't tell him that. He's just saying, "Hey, I'm going to use you to show who I am." And so then from that we need nowhere, I won't say nowhere, but there's going to be times when we're suffering. Yeah, we are to be joyful in our suffering, especially if we suffer for the Lord and that kind of stuff. But it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to be frustrated with it, or to complain. Job, look at Job complaining. Job, and God told him, right, "Look, I'm God." And so, but again, it doesn't mean that human nature side of us is not going to come out with whatever's happening to us. But we still need to make sure we keep our faith in God and look forward to God, and not let those moments where we're down or it's hard, bring us all the way down. We keep pushing forward and we focus on Jesus and who he is. This, I think, is a wonderful example of how he can use the things that we go through for his glory and to glorify him. As always, I appreciate everyone for watching. If you find these helpful, please share them with your friends, family, whoever, and so they can see it, maybe to help them too. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and do that. We're going to continue to produce different videos and different subjects as we go forward. And as always, I appreciate everyone for watching.